Good morning.
Good morning, Deborah Leanne.
How are you, Suzanne?
I'm really well. Thank you. This is a blessed day today.
Shall I be patient and wait till you explain that comment, or do we want?
I don't know. I had this epiphany while I was getting ready today, just about it's amazing that when we make contact with other people, like we've touched each other's lives in some way.
Mhm.
And out of all the billions of people that are on the planet, that there's people that show up in our lives at just the right time. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it just feels very miraculous to me. So I was feeling very blessed this morning.
Well, excellent.
Yes.
I think you and I's meeting was very much like that. Um, but let's introduce the topic, shall we?
Yes.
I'm trying to be
So,
patient, but I'm not doing a very good
all
job.
right. So today's topic is all about patience. It is Gene Key number 5, and it's from the Gene Keys book written by Richard Rudd. And it is the key of called The Ending of Time. And the shadow of this is impatience. Are we there yet? And then moving to the acidic state is timelessness, and we get there through patience, which is the gift. And I know so very much about this, Gene Key.
Where is this in yours?
It's actually my vocation.
I found
So
it fascinating to hear Richard say that it is his purpose.
yeah, yeah.
And I think when we know something so intimately because we've been playing with it for a while, you can probably drive. I have lots of beautiful anecdotes that I wanted to bring forth, and I didn't write any of them down because I thought, okay, this is about trust and being in the moment
Mm-hmm.
and allowing that whatever is going to come through is perfect. So, coming from an impatience junkie who I pretend like I'm not, let me just say, I think a lot of us pretend that we're spiritual and we're not caught up in the craziness of the time space continuum. But we all have tells, I think. There's something that we might do where we get a little like, and it could be ordering in a restaurant. It could be checking to see the delivery of something that we ordered online. It could be it's kind of so part of our culture. It's built in. I mean, think about of all of our phone has how many millions of
Notification.
notifications. Just in case you missed something, let me tell you what you missed. And alarms. And I'm thinking, I I I play this game of I'm not part of that world. And then I go in the corner and play a timed game on my phone, which brings up all the adrenaline in my body. And I'm like, so so I'm wondering, I bet that we could probably talk to some neuroscience geeks and find out, do you think that there's a dopamine addiction to the not just waiting patiently for
Right.
something versus this constant, I have to check, and like, is it here yet? Did that email show up yet? Did she text me back? I mean, really? So I want to ask you, where does that show up for you, especially if it's in your vocation world? I want to hear
Yeah.
about how impatience, and I'm going to ask it in three ways. This is what I do with my clients. How does it show up physically,
Okay.
emotionally,
All right.
energetically?
Um, in my body, if I get that way and it's racy, I get really hot.
Ah,
Um, and emotionally, I get agitated. I can feel it, and it's very gritty. And then what was the third one?
Energetically.
Energetically. um, feels sometimes pushy.
Oh, so that you can go into the repressive and reactive
Yeah.
if you want to, because that was
Yeah.
perfect. Thank.
Yeah. So the repressive nature of this is pessimistic. So it's when impatient drives a person to give up, and they just are listless, and they are like, everything's a complete loss, and that when everyone's just kind of like, whatever, nothing works, that's when somebody's just out of rhythm with their life, right? But if I get into my energetic state of in this shadow, it sometimes is in the reactive, which is pushy. And it can come out sideways as anger. You can hear it in the tone of my voice. It can sound very sharp and agitated. And that's when I recognize, oh my gosh, I have got to slow down because I'm trying to push life. I mean,
Mm,
how crazy is that sounding? And I recognize that when I was in business, and I wanted things done, and I wanted it done quickly and efficiently. And it was not allowing the process the time that it needs. Like, we were managing a very large ship, and I was like, hut two, why aren't we getting this done in a faster manner? And it's like, this is going to be like a 5-year plan. Ah. So, yeah, that was my impatience at its work. And so I
can I ask a question? Because I know that you and I don't know if we're allowed to introduce our guys' names, but Andrew, he gets on a project and he's like so like on a roll to like finish it.
yeah,
And is that a sign of impatience of being with the messiness of it, or is that a sign of just his diligence? Or I mean, what do you think?
I
Because I
think
noticed
that's
that
more diligence and will.
will, okay,
Mhm.
because that's what I think John's is too. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
just curious because it shows up so differently.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing, because he's not coming from, we got to get this done because XYZ. He just is like, I'm on a roll, let's go. So it's
Got
very different.
it. Okay.
And um and he doesn't get angry ever. Like, he is like,
Oh,
I when you get in agitation with this key, you can get sharp and just really so I see this telltale signs, and I recognize this. And this is when I've been diving a lot deeper into the gifts and into the citic states, because I just remember, it's like, Susanne, we've got all this space, sister. Like, what we are in this moment, this is what we are creating. This is our future in this now moment. So, do you want to create from that place of agitation? No, you really don't. So let's take a step back and contemplate and pause.
yeah. And I love that whole how he was talking about how even the religions and stuff tell us to get into the present and be in the moment, because that is where prayer from that space
Yep.
creates what we're wanting more of in the future. Oh, by the way, I'm doing the mudra for this is timelessness. It's the thumbs connected, the pinkies connected, and the middle fingers folded in. Yeah, beautiful. So I'm just holding that space because I'm going to try to remember that I don't need to push this along.
Not at all. Mhm.
So the other thing I want to ask about impatience is, and I know it's part of 3 different codon rings. These are all different gene key terms. But the gene key prior has to do with um, intolerance, the shadow,
Mhm.
and the gene key after has to do with conflict And if you think about
Yeah.
the impatience, how that plays into intolerance and conflict, it's like, okay, basically war, you know, all
Yeah.
the ugliness on the planet comes from this.
Right.
And
And
then
so,
oh, go ahead.
so then I was thinking, I loved how Richard said, you know, no one teaches patience.
I know you have
And
to
then,
think about it, workshops on patience.
and I'm thinking about that. And I was like, you know, wow, if this is my vocation and I'm a creator of this, what would one look like? What would one workshop look like about patience and timelessness? And I really think it gets into the etheric realm and remembering all of parts of us as a multidimensional being here on this planet now. What do we want to create with our time? Even though there really is no time.
I just had I just had a really interesting thought. The part where Richard says that when he really wants to play, about reminding ourselves that we're infinite beings, he said he kind of contemplates the word infinite or infinity. And he said in that space, he kind of melts, like time melts.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he gets all soft and like syrupy, I think was the word he used. And I thought that was so good. So I'm like all about like working with you on playing in the playland of timelessness, and how can that be a whole retreat, basically, you
Yeah.
know. um
Because we can move in time and space. Um, and I think certainly when we want to create something brand new, we're investing in that spaciousness. And
yeah,
if we stay in that impatience, I mean, that's all in our body, you know, that's a body memory thing and it's ancient. And I remember thinking, you don't really feel safe in your body if you're acting in that space. And so remembering like sometimes your shortness of breath. So it also comes back to breath work and remembering your beingness here now.
yeah. And
Yeah.
one of the things though that's interesting is that actually if you go to the indigenous cultures, they do a lot of sitting around, like they just are playing, they're like just in life, like just
Right.
living life. And it's such a
Right.
different, I know Miranda said that because she came directly from Brazil last year to New York City to go to a wedding in Manhattan. I mean, like how different those cultures could be. And it was all about, you know, she was with these young professionals that were all like, so what do you do? And like, we're a lawyer and engineer, you know, and doctors, and we're in this, that, and the other, you know, PhD program. And she's just like, I travel and I do some landscaping to make money. And they just kind of looked at her like she was this, well, she is an anomaly. And I'm
Yeah.
very proud of her for being an anomaly, you know, as somebody who's approaching 30 years old. The point being is it was such culture shock for her. She just, it like literally, she just found herself watching and observing the world with such different eyes that she wouldn't have had if she'd come directly from Australia where she's living, or
Yeah.
but Brazil, where it's all about, we're going to take 2 hours to have this cup of coffee,
Yeah.
man. That's what
Yeah.
we do.
Being in the flow of life as opposed to needing to rush anything.
Yeah.
And I came from such a culture where everything was timed out even a year in advance. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like it's
yeah, the
just
5 year strategic plan. I
yeah.
was the strategic planner. God
Yeah.
bless.
And so there's where's the spontaneity, where's the joy, where's the, you know, and I'm not saying that planning is bad. Believe me, you know, it has its role. But it does tend to squish you in some ways of feeling that pressure. And so patience is really about trust and trusting in life and the ebb and flow of life and the seasons of life. So
And
it's
when things go sideways, this is one of the things that I don't think we recognize as humans, or maybe it's me personally. But when I hit like a wall, I think I was always taught, well, then you just push right through that wall and you keep work, and that is what we're learning now. Is that means, oh, pause, regroup, walk away, go to bed, sleep on it.
right.
And I'm not used to getting better. I can tell as I get older, I think some of these things come naturally because we're more relaxed. Like I'm not afraid of death anymore. So, but that is a constant, like I have to get this done before, I have this bucket list that has to be done before I'm 60 or before I'm da da da. And I'm like, eh. eh. So anyway, are we, I don't know if we're done with impatience because it's such a biggie, but I want to play with what patience can actually bring into our life.
Yeah, let's do that. Um, this key taps into the ring of light, and
Mm.
they're very specific keys that are all, it's a codon ring. And it talks about, this is kind of really interesting the way he talks about this. As a vital element of the chemical family known as the ring of light, the fifth key plays a profound role within your genetics, coding for an amino acid known as threonine. It determines the blueprint of how your individual cells trap light and convert it to energy. So, I mean, we're talking on the physical level of what patience does for us. And I always used to say as a kid, I loved being outside and like hanging out, literally doing nothing, just accepting sunlight. I was like, was I a tree once? Like I feel like I photosynthesize.
No, yeah, I know. Bob, my ex used to call it. He said, I feel like I'm solar powered.
Yeah,
Like I just need to and for me, I think it's laying on the ground,
right.
whether you're laying on the sand or in the grass and there's something about that connection to earth. But yeah, you're right. And then I
There's
am such a sky person. Like I
yeah.
imagine that I'm part of it. I am it, you
And
know?
and when you think of people that are in dark places and they're like, I just want to go to a beach. Just time on the beach. I think it's that sunlight thing. Like
Oh, it
people
is.
just need that space and time. So this is about just those cells getting light allows for more open-heartedness, and the way in which we can be open-hearted attracts more of that same frequency into our beingness. And so yeah, patience is really deep within your own body, and just remember that. And it's about your breath. It's about the timing, allowing life to live through you without any rush. And
And there comes my
it's
big word,
it's
trust.
it's a state of softening, as Richard said. It's a state of just remembering your innate beingness and being so gentle with your vehicle, with your body, with the words that you speak to people, the words that you speak to yourself. Um,
And
yeah,
that's where the love comes in.
yeah.
I think when we are soft enough and relaxed, well, this is another thing for me, relaxing and surrendering, he uses that word too,
Hmm.
is is then we can just sit in that space. And I know I'm moving into the citic state of timelessness, but there is back when I did magic school years ago, one of the things we played with was, can we just float in our essence? I mean, first get fully connected to the light that we are in our bodies, and then almost like you imagine that you're floating on water, allow ourselves to be carried by the unified field, loving consciousness, infinite wisdom, whatever you want to call God and the universe. And it was like but as soon as you question, am I floating? Am I floating? Then you, you know, you don't float anymore. So how do you have a practice to play with getting into, I mean, patience is one thing, but I kind of see it like as being a ladder. Like you get to here, but I've tasted timelessness and I love that journey space or that
Well, I
love
think
space or that
I think
orgasmic space.
we've experienced that, like, just in conversation. I call it the 3-hour tour, but I mean, we went all different places during that time and space where you're journeying everywhere, everything all at once. What was that?
Oh
That
yeah,
movie, you know, like,
we've
right. I mean,
been
we,
using that a lot lately about everything everywhere all at once.
yeah,
And that is a, but that to me brings up anxiety versus, but that was the whole point of the movie, right? Is once she was like, oh, I get it, this is just what is.
right. It's everything. And
And
you can relax into that.
that's the being with, which to me feels like love.
Yeah,
It's the, can I be with everything
right.
and not want it to go away, not want to, which is where the impatience comes in, but can I just be with it? Because then it flows. It always flows.
Yeah.
It's the trusting and surrendering and allowing and accepting and embracing and
And so when we get into that timelessness, it's hitting, as Richard says, it's hitting the speed of being.
I love that.
It's our beingness, and it's really into the causal mind, or it's beyond
The
logic.
causal body, yeah.
Mhm. And
And
so this is where you're moving from contemplation and presence, and then seeing it coming into form, because a lot of it, you know, is all up in that space, but recognizing it's bringing it down into our bodies. And that's that open-hearted. When people are open-hearted, they're typically, you'll find them in peak health. That's what he says, that you know, the more open-hearted you live, because you're not allowing anything to agitate you. I mean, come on.
and you're not in that
You're not,
constriction where you're
yeah, you're
holding
not,
in, you're
right.
allowing life to flow through. And so there's not going to be the dis-ease and the
Right.
gathering of the stagnant energies. I get it. I don't, you know, I love how you pick out things that I don't even see.
That's why we're partners.
Social.
So, yes. So it's really interesting because the shadow is not a bad thing. It's actually a frequency that's there to be unlocked.
Mm,
And so we all need those aspects of our keys so that, you know, things can emerge. So just think of it as, you know, at a different seed stage. And then when you reach a different, it starts opening or blossoming. So, um, and it's coming down to, you know, your own spiritual awakening or enlightenment. And so when you recognize timelessness, you recognize you're complete, and you understand all things within your own beingness. It's not anybody else's journey, it's all yours anyways.
right.
You know, you're not here living through somebody else's lens, you're living through your own lens. And
And
so,
and wasn't there though a line, which is where I get confused about the individuality versus the collective, where when everything is going crazy in the world, or it's like when your life is crazy, it's typically because everything is crazy. And so can you relax into that to allow that state to shift and change?
right,
I
it
don't feel like
actually,
the collective is going to shift and change anytime
no,
soon.
exactly. And so that's the gift of the patience, is it allows you to breathe deeply into your belly and never feel trapped by your outer life situation.
Hmm.
It allows patience. Patience smooths the rough edges, keeps your heart and mind open, and makes life seem simple and easy. Like,
Hmm.
let's just hit the easy button, people. You know,
That's so
um,
much easier said than done, darling.
no, I know, and But when I work with spirit, I know that things can be effortless. I do know that.
I
And
do.
I've proved it over and over again to myself that
It can actually be fun
it's
and
fun and
surprising and
playful
delightful. Yes.
and delightful. It does not have to be hard.
Oh
And
my God.
so getting out of my own way with, are we there yet? Like that's when I give it up to and surrender to the divine and go, all right, okay, where do I need to be when I need to be there? And let's make a game out of it.
Oh, I forget that part. That's why you're in my life. Um,
Don't be so
so
serious about it.
I know. Well, you know what keeps coming up for me, which is so funny because 20, let's see, Kirsten was a year old. 26 or 7 years ago, I did a leadership program. It was a 90-day program, and it was uh, a lot about team and then taking your gifts into the world. So we actually had to do some kind of big service project. We actually bought land and saved it from being developed. It's now a park down in Southwest Missouri. Anyway, the point being is that my team members told me over and over and over again, and I think I maybe got it on some level 10 years later, and I'm maybe getting it again almost 30 years later. It was, it doesn't have to look a certain way. Because I'm like, well, we're not there yet because it doesn't look like, and people are like, it doesn't have to look a certain way. And we had no idea how we were going to come up with the money to buy this land. And then somebody wrote us how much do you need? They wrote us a check and the rest of it was done. And we're like,
That's easy.
well, I know my mind couldn't even comprehend that. So this whole thing about having to look like we're going to have to get 10,000 people to each give us $1 to get that last 10,000. Yeah. Somebody goes, how much? Here's the check. Done.
Right. So again, I think the timelessness taps into our spiritual essence of continuity
Getting
and
out of
and, and
getting out of the
trusting in,
mental. Yeah.
right, and trusting in life and trusting in spirit. And so it talks about the acidic state is different. It's you've jumped out of the game of the craziness because it's the death of all fighting.
Oh, that's why it feels so yummy,
Yeah, you're not struggling. You're not trying to fight against anything. You are in your beingness.
which feels like floating to me, which feels like, yeah.
And when you get to that space, you sometimes you have to exhaust yourself
Well,
before you get there.
do you think
And
that's why people get high? Because it
mm,
gets them to that place of, ah, like I think we chemically try to reach that space versus allowing our bodies to naturally find it.
and I know that you can find it without, but there's a lot of,
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. Um, but you finally recognize and see yourself and all of your patterns, and you just can relax.
Can you love
It's
them? All those patterns?
exactly, exactly. And be like, oh, hmm, okay, now what do I want to choose?
And
So
that's where we do need others, right? I think
yes,
when we forget, um, I think that was why we both found love so quickly after being here together, is that I could totally mess up as a human being and you still loved me. And
yeah.
that taught me something on a completely different level, which opened my heart to be available. So show me the relationship, how you see it with patience and love.
Mm. Well, wasn't that the one of the adages from the Bible? Love is patient and kind.
Oh,
Um, and so I equate it to being gentle and you know even when somebody may not be that way to you, it really is important how you show up for someone else.
returning non love with love. to use
And
rich
that,
words.
yes, and that's the work of the Venus sequence. You know, that's how can we still maintain our own integrity of who we are and what how we wish to show up in the world, despite how somebody else is showing up.
Yeah.
And that's that,
Wow.
yeah. Would I before you read the prayer
Yes.
to close today, is there think of one, two, or three, and we can pull a card.
Oh, yes, please. Two.
Okay.
I was going to say one, but that was very impatient. So
Oh, that's kind
I'll
of
wait.
interesting. That was a new deck, actually.
Ah,
But we're
well,
going to go back to Colette Baron-Reid, and we're going to do Wisdom of the Oracle.
love that deck.
So, what do we need to know today, or what do we need to know in this now moment for this week as we move about the cabin? Because it is
And
timeless, anyways.
absolutely.
So, whoever gets this recording whenever,
It's
it's
perfect.
perfect. Oh, it's so funny. Okay, so top, middle, or bottom?
Bottom.
Okay. Oh, so we've got a fork in the road.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an
Oh,
interesting
my favorite
picture.
number, 13.
I know. And when I think of 13, I add it together and it gets a 4. So it feels foundational. 13. So, oh, this is funny. It's talking about the essential is time to make a decision. And we're talking about time, right? So we're talking about now moments.
Yeah.
And so in this now moment, consider the consequences as you prepare to act, owning up to your obligation to make a necessary choice. So recognize that every choice has a consequence. And so you've arrived at a fork in the road and are being asked to come to a decision. So will you further your dreams by choosing left or by choosing right? Will you take the road less traveled or the one well worn by others who have come before you? Now, this is your choice and it's yours alone to make. So circumstances and other people will not make it for you. So be present. Do not avoid this junction, for it's an important crossroads. So take heart, and as no matter which path you choose, you will have a rich and meaningful experience.
Because it's all perfect.
It's all perfect anyways.
Oh, wow. Well, interestingly, we I do feel like there's a huge crossroads in front of us. And I'm kind of like trusting that I'll know exactly which way to go. And I don't know the answer yet. So I'm allowing it to the space to receive it. It's funny because I felt my shoulders going up. I'm like, no, relax.
Relax.
We're safe. And I do trust that probably more than I ever have before, that all the that I can feel all the change that's coming. It's like so yummy and good
How
and
good can it
fun.
get?
So, so, and it's interesting because I was just talking to somebody last night about noticing how things are moving, but how I'm kind of in flow with, oh, look at that. Oh, and noticing the, what's along we did a houseboat tour years ago and it was moving so slowly down this canal. And that, you could like see each tree and appreciate it, as you moved along. And no, you could actually like walk along the side of the boat about the same speed. But it was the most beautiful way to travel. And I thought, I love this, as opposed to, I mean, airplanes have their purpose, but that slowing down and appreciating and smelling the roses.
So enjoy your sip, you know, slow down. Don't gulp at life, sip life,
Oh, I love that.
right?
Yes, and let's play with the prayer on that. Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ah, so this is the Holy Incantation of Solace by Richard Rudd. I'll put the link in below so you can have access to the words and the mudras for your own purpose at some point. And it begins with, may love pour through my soul. May light flower in my heart. May warmth radiate my belly. May purity shimmer in my bones. May kindness resound in my voice. May clarity shine through my mind. May solace abound in my life, touching all who I meet. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect unity. Join me. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union.
unity.
May solace
Solace
abound in the world, bringing all beings
beings
into perfect
perfect
union.
unity.